Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, this week we continue our series with the row office candidates, State Treasurer Rob McCord. But first, the Chancellor of the state system of higher education. We're due for one of our regular updates on what's going on in higher education. All of that follows these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, the Chancellor of the state system, John Cavanaugh, is sitting across from me, as often is the case. I'll get all that out. Chancellor, welcome.
Great to be back, Terry.
Look, I couldn't have you here at a better time, and I'm going to tell you why. We're hearing jobs, training, what are students doing when they get out of work? I mean, you've got this huge system, over 100,000 students, most of them Pennsylvania, am I right so far?
That's right, yeah.
What is the state system doing about diversifying its education programs to help the economic needs of the state, the employment needs of the state? Let's talk about that.
Sure. Well, as you know, Terry, the whole history of the state system is all about trying to meet the needs of the Commonwealth, particularly when it comes to workforce and jobs and things of that sort. Our heritage in teacher education, we started because the Commonwealth needed teachers. We continue to look to ways to serve the Commonwealth today. We are adding a lot of programs in science, technology, engineering, math, and allied health to meet those needs. And particularly in the area of the state where there are no public community colleges, we've added two-year degree programs, workforce education certificates, job training programs. We've started a Marcellus Institute at Mansfield University. Our branch campuses up in the north and in the west are offering those retraining programs for people that need to update their skills. So everything that we're really focused on right now is to help us get those programs up and running, and make them available to the people that need them as quickly as possible.
You made a good point. I mean, first of all, the Marcellus Shale, a booming industry, but because of where the public universities are situated in places where there's been a lot of what we call brain drain. Students graduate from high school, they go to college, or even if they don't go to college, they have to find jobs, they have to move out. But there's real needs for certain skills in those areas where there are jobs available, and is that the premise of why, if you're at Mansfield or Lock Haven or Clarion, up along the northern tier and then in the southwest, where unemployment tends to be a little higher? Finish my thought on that.
Sure. Really, what we've done is we've sat with a lot of the HR directors in the gas industry, for example.
Right.
Found out what kind of degree programs they need that they can't get the graduates for. We then had conversations with faculty. In the case of Mansfield, to continue that story, in the geology area, we put together a two-year degree program, four-year degree program up there, all targeted at areas of high need. They're good-paying jobs.
Right.
And we got those programs up and running in 6 months. We're doing similar things in other parts of the state to make sure that we're not duplicating what other institutions are doing, because there's plenty of need out there and there's plenty of niches that we can fill as a state system.
One of the things we've talked about over the years is, we have a community college system somewhat. We have a public higher education system somewhat. The integration between community colleges and the four-year schools. Now, some people might say, oh, gee, isn't this a bore? No, this is important because people...
Absolutely.
How is that articulation working? So people who go to community college, they come to a four-year school, it's more of a seamless transition. How is that working?
Well, it works in a number of ways. We have the formal articulation agreement, so if you do an associate's degree at a community college, you transfer all those credits in and you can keep right on going. But we've also created 2 + 2 + 2 all the way down to the career and technical centers through community colleges and then to us, in such a way that you could go out into the workforce after you do, let's say, a 2-year certification program in some technical skill area or something of that sort.
Sure.
Come back to a community college, get an Associate of Science degree, go back out into the workforce, and then come back to us a little bit later and finish out that 4-year degree.
Great. All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk to the Chancellor about budgets. As you know, the public higher education, state-related, state-owned schools have had their budgets cut and then restored. We're going to ask the Chancellor about what the budget situation is like in the 14 public universities. After we do what? We pay some of our own bills now. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation, educating citizens and business leaders about important public policy issues and civic affairs. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by BetterSaferRoads.com. To voice your support for safer highways and less traffic congestion, visit BetterSaferRoads.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Welcome back. I'm talking with the Chancellor of the State System of Higher Education, John Cavanaugh. That's the 14 publicly owned universities in the state. There's been a big wrestling match over the colleges, the universities' budgets in our state. You got your funding restored to last year's level. Get into some specifics about the budget, where you see it going, what the needs are of the public universities. Now, talking about Shippensburg and Millersville, I have to mention Millersville, having been there, Clarion, Lock Haven, Cheney. I can't mention all of them, but you all get the idea. Go ahead, Chancellor.
Sure, Terry. First of all, we're deeply grateful to the General Assembly and the Governor for the budget restoration in the current fiscal year. That was enormously helpful to us. Looking ahead, the economy is still not back to where it was several years ago, and we understand that times are still difficult. We just put our budget request together. We're going to ask for a modest increase that reflects the kind of mandatory increases that we have in the cost of the state pension plans and utilities and things of that sort. Healthcare costs continue to go up. But we're mindful that almost 3/4 of our revenue now come from students and their families through tuition and fees. So we want to be as frugal as we can be, and recognize that certain cost increases are part of doing business.
They're inevitable.
But we're continuing to make sure that we do everything we can to keep our costs down, look for ways to be efficient. As you know, we've taken about $230 million of cost out of the system in the last 7 to 8 years, and we continue to look for new and creative ways to do that.
In effect, cuts.
Yeah.
$230 million. Now, 30 years ago, I could be wrong, about 1/3 of the monies to run the schools came from tuitions and other fees. Right. 2/3 from the state government, because you're a wholly owned state school. We got to think about it. Now it's the flip of that?
Yeah, it's about 27% from the Commonwealth, and about 73% from tuition and fee revenue.
Before I let you go, let's talk a little bit about enrollments. They've had these huge enrollment increases. Now we've got enrollment declines. Some of the state schools have declines, almost all of them, some larger than others. What is the trend that you see here, and what are the implications?
I think that there are about 3 trends. The first is, of course, the number of high school graduates across the Commonwealth as a whole are going down. There are some regional differences in around the Philadelphia area, for example. They're still going up.
Stronger,
but as a Commonwealth, they tend to go down. So the size of that market is shrinking. However, there are a couple of other markets that we're really well positioned to move into, more so than we have in the past. The first are people who may have some college and no degree. So they may have had an opportunity to start college but maybe not finish.
Right.
So that's an area that we're taking a very close look at, reaching out as much as possible to allow them to have an opportunity to finish those degrees.
Right.
And then the third group are people who just never had the chance to go earlier in life. They may be middle-aged or in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s even, to give them a chance to come back and have that opportunity to get that college degree.
Right.
Both of those latter 2 groups are important for the issues that we talked about earlier
Yeah,
in terms of jobs and retraining.
The retraining and
moving up in skills,
good point.
Advanced manufacturing, and those kinds of things.
Well, look, I want to thank you for coming in. This has been a great update. Come back soon when we get the budget going. We'll have you back and we can talk some specifics about what you need and also these employment trends, which I think are important. We got student debt. Maybe we'll have you back. We can talk a little bit about that. I still think, and I'll make an editorial, tuition at $6,000, $7,000 is still, you know, in the scheme of things, it's not bad. I know you want it lower. I understand that. But when you look at prices the way they've escalated, look at gasoline, for example, and they go $4 a gallon, and, you know, but it's still, I think, for the money, a great buy. Did I just editorial? I guess I did.
We appreciate that, Terry.
Hey, well, hey, that's okay. We'll be back in a moment with the State Treasurer, Rob McCord, continuing our series on the elections for the state row offices after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Welcome back with Rob McCord, the State Treasurer. We're continuing our series on the row offices, Auditor General, State Treasurer, Attorney General. Asked the candidates to come in. Rob McCord ending his first term, seeking re-election to a second term, right, Treasurer?
Correct. It went by like that, didn't it?
It certainly did. All right, here's what we're going to do. I want to do one segment. What did you do your first term? Talk about what you think are Rob McCord's successes as state. Don't be modest. Come on.
Yeah, no, that's nice of you. I mean, look, we ran making the case that this was an important office, State Treasurer, really important to help to invest $80 billion a year, affect hundreds of millions of dollars more as a fiscal watchdog. And I said it makes sense to bring in a business team and business and financial experience and innovation, because you're a CEO, you're a chief investment officer, a CIO, and you're a fiscal watchdog. And over again, we've been able to help seniors to the tune of billions of dollars, to help students. We entirely repaired the PA 529 plan. Right. A lot of people didn't know that was underfunded by 30%, a $400 million problem. We repaired that, worked on a bipartisan basis with my friend Senator Jake Corman on that. I encourage people to click on to pa529.com. Only about 1 in 10 people who support other people's education, investing in their kids, grandchildren, take advantage of the tax deductions that are available via 529. Usually they're paying fees that are too high. We reduced already low fees with Vanguard 30% more. The Guaranteed Savings Plan, which is a magnificent plan, protects principal and protects you against tuition inflation. These are both award-winning things. They're really widely recognized. It's helped me get the endorsement of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Philadelphia Inquirer, hopefully shortly the Patriot News. I enjoyed my interview there. So we really helped with college affordability and higher education, and we frankly ramped up the fiscal watchdog work and saved the taxpayers of Pennsylvania money. I mean, I am a maven for efficiency and innovation.
Now, your background, you come to this office unlike, and I'm not going to criticize your predecessors, but most of them spent a career in politics. I think you would agree there. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, right.
But when we've talked about this over the years, you brought a different kind of background.
Right. I was very lucky. I mean, I came out of the entrepreneurial world. I got a lot of scholarship money to go to Harvard when I was a kid. My mom had been through a rough time, was divorced from the time I was 4 until I was 14. She remarried a statistics professor at what was then Drexel Institute of Technology. So I had home tutoring and everything. Right. I got a lot of scholarship money to go to Harvard, studied economics there, learned a lot about markets, deregulation. I mean, I became kind of a moderate on a lot of issues, fiscally much more moderate. Got to work with the New Ideas Democrats in a lot of ways on Capitol Hill, but also got to run a bipartisan think tank for a couple of years. Wanted to go to business school, not law school. Came home, went to the Wharton School. Wanted to go into venture capital because you're, not the later stage. I joke that when people attack Mitt Romney, they might bruise my brand by accident. But we didn't do any of that leverage stuff or some of the things that the buyout sites do.
So your background.
So I did that for a couple of decades of work in business.
Has really helped you. So all right, we got the 529 and
helping seniors and pensioners and so forth.
How many folks are currently involved in the 529 program? Do you have any idea?
Well, we've had more than an 11% increase in the number of accounts. We've had more than a 32% increase in the assets under management, and of course we had record-breaking returns over a 3-year period. And what do they say in politics? Failure is an orphan, and success has a million fathers. At both of the big pension funds, the education one and the state employees one, PESERS and SERS, as well as in the money that I run as the sole fiduciary, they've had net of all fees. So forget the fees and the differences between stocks and bonds and all that. 10.9% or above with the tuition account program, the 529 program, doing the best over a 3-year period.
401k and get it
well, it's over 3, and a lot of people don't know there's a lot of this disciplined investment can make a difference, but there's still huge problems to be addressed, and I'm looking forward to doing that.
Well, let's run to a break, and when we come back, what I want to do is I want to ask you about the pension systems. I hear different figures from different sources. Some say 35, 40, $45 billion in liabilities between the two funds. I want you to, if Rob McCord were king for the day, what would you do to help deal with that situation? You're on both boards, correct?
Correct.
All right, State Treasurer Rob McCord, seeking re-election. Not after this break, but on November 6th, but we'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hi, welcome back with Rob McCord, State Treasurer. He's seeking re-election. All right, let's look. If there's a bigger problem confronting this state, it's sort of the equivalent of Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security at the federal level. At the state level, it's these two big pension systems. Rob McCord, you're king for a day. You're on both pensions. What would you do to deal with the huge looming debt, debt that's here now, as we look into the future with those two big pension systems?
First and foremost, be fiscally responsible and stop kicking the can down the road. I mean, there's been a bipartisan failure of leadership here. Governor Ridge was very good to me. He said openly and in private conversations he made a mistake, around the pensions that in a way helped to feed the problem.
When they expanded benefits.
And exactly, without paying for it. And you're going to see a lot of government by talking points. So I will play the role of fiscal watchdog again and again and again. And I've been sounding the drum on a lot of these issues for years before I started running for office.
Right.
For a variety of reasons. One of the important things to note is that the average person in Pennsylvania and America does not have a secure retirement. And we need to kind of open the camera aperture and make sure we think about retirement security generally. Most 401k plans have not served the people very well. They pay 100 basis points, a full percent more to manage them versus defined benefit. They don't do as well because they get into the market at the wrong time, out of the market, greed and fear. So you can't just wave a wand and say the problem's gone now. Second, they've stroked a credit card, and the state roughly owes $40 billion. And that estimates vary depending on what your assumed rate of return is on future years of investment. But call it a $40 billion problem. It's a big, hairy problem that gets bigger earlier if you say, well, let's end it right now, because you would have contributors from current employees. So I don't think they'll do that. You've got to get people around the table from both parties responsibly talking about how to reduce the overall cost per dollar of benefit, not just get us through the night of the next budget cycle.
Long-term reform.
Right,
is
and
what
there
you're
is some
talking
financial
about.
innovation to be had. You've got I think it's good that Moody's and S&P are saying that off-budget sheet debt, that $40 billion, it's owed. They stroked their credit card.
Yeah.
So they're going to start holding people accountable, and I've encouraged that. And I've said,
And if we're not careful there, we'll pay more on all the borrowing we do.
Exactly. So what you mean, yeah, they should have been thinking earlier,
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah.
I mean, people forget, you don't get always time back. This is a low interest rate environment. You could make a lot of the payments more predictable by the very constructive use of debt with an independent fiscal watchdog like the McCord
things
Treasurer.
that I keep hearing out of the legislature and elsewhere is, why not just do a bond and pay for what we now are indebted to and for by a bond issue? Does that make any sense?
One, it's too big. Two, you've got to make sure that you're fixing multiple parts of the problem.
You mean just don't borrow the money without fixing?
Yeah, you've got a couple of things that you've got to make. And what happened? I mean, let's be clear. They beat at both PSERS and SERS, these two big pension funds, they beat their rate of assumption over a 25-year period, and you work in 25-year arcs in both of those funds, well over 8.5% net of fees in both funds.
Right.
The employees contributed whatever they were told to do, and they put the vast bulk of their life savings in there. It was the employers,
and
we need to watch out that workers don't get ripped off by employers.
Didn't make any employer contribution when they were making a lot of money.
Right.
All right, we're about a minute and a half. I can't let you go without asking you this question. Everybody mentions you as a possible gubernatorial candidate in 2 years. I'm not letting you out of here without asking you the same question.
Yeah.
Rob McCord thinking about running for governor?
I mean, right now I'm obsessing with Treasury, and part of it is I'm in the last lap of a re-election race. Part of it is I love the office, and I want to remind people this is arguably the most important elective office that almost nobody ever thinks about, and there are years when the treasurer is doing more important work than the other statewide electeds. When you take a look at the scale of what happens and legislative gridlock.
And show me the money.
Right, show me the money. I mean, we make a multi-billion-dollar difference in the McCord Treasury. So I want people to understand I love the job I'm in. I do think it's good to create market pressure with the conversation. Competition, I think, is good. I also take it as flattering for my team at Treasury. I don't think we'd be in the conversation if we weren't doing a really good job at Treasury. So I'm flattered by it. And then I'll ribbingly say, I have this guy I follow. He's a genius type. He's some Irishman named like Mick McDonough or whatever. And he's always writing about how it's impossible to beat an incumbent governor. So I read his stuff, you know. But anyway, yeah.
Well, at any rate, well, who knows? Governor Corbett's job performance, and I'm on the record, everybody knows that, is relatively low, but they've come back from the past, as you know.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's a great answer. Look, I want to thank you for coming on. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.